ashes. Individually, its particles are light, but together they become heavy burdens, filling our insides with darkness. As we receive His love, we're filled with His light, exposing us to the image of God that was implanted within us. At that moment, our ashes are exchanged for the beauty God created within, illuminating His light in and through every aspect of our life.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Myra, as Ashley said. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for the past. Sorry, if you see me looking up, my kids are upstairs. I'm just making sure no one's falling down the stairs. I've been a nurse for the past 10 years, primarily in the emergency room. I now do pediatrics. I still work in the emergency room, but pediatrics only now. I'm a certified health coach. I love to know about food. I love to learn about food, and I think that's what motivated me to be a health coach. And as Ashley said, I run a nonprofit as well in Cameroon. I'm originally from Cameroon, West Africa. I'm going to welcome you guys again to the second Ash Exchange International Conference. I had the privilege of being a part of the last one, and this is going to be my second time speaking. Thank you, Marquita, for such a strong word. It was very confirming. I mean, I've been just going through some stuff lately, and I've even been scared to ask God, why me? And I think you answered that perfectly, because He can trust us to trust Him. And I feel like that's just the season that we're in, and just something that was very confirming as well. Just 2022 ending in praise, and you touched on that so powerfully. And I believe this year is going to end in praise, and all of 2023 we're going to pray. It's going to be, praise precedes the victory, right? So I feel like that's going to be just part of our testimony by the end of this year and just moving into 2023. I have a PowerPoint. I'm going to shift from Marquita's. I'm going to give you guys facts and data, and let me see if I can share my screen. I think I should be able to. Yes. Can you guys see this PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to be sharing about living sugar-free. Last year, I shared just from a holistic perspective of just being healthy, right? Being healthy is sleeping well, eating well, exercise, being mentally healthy, just all this, being financially healthy. So it's holistic. But this year, I want to just share just from this one aspect of sugar. I feel like sugar plays such an important part in our diets that we don't even think of the different ways in which we eat sugar. And I mean, just working in the hospital every day, I mean, you see how unhealthy people are. I think that if we're going to do the things that God has called us to do, you cannot do it from a hospital bed. I mean, maybe in some capacity, right? You can evangelize to your nurses and doctors, but I don't believe that you can be as effective if you're at the doctor every day for your blood pressure, your cholesterol, and then eventually all those will lead you to have a heart attack or a stroke. I do believe that God is a healer. I do believe in healing. There's not a thing on this earth that God cannot heal. However, I also think that God has given us the responsibility to steward our health and to be healthy in our bodies. And the scripture that I always share is just John 3 verse 3 John 1 verse 2. I'm going to read it in the Amplified Version. Beloved, I pray that in every way you may succeed and prosper and be in good health physically, just as I know your soul prospers spiritually, right? So it's just not about our spiritual health, right? We should make sure that we're doing the things that spiritually feed us, but we also have that responsibility to be good to be healthy in our bodies physically. So the title of my presentation is Living Sugar-Free, Improving Metabolic Fitness. So our metabolism is just a set of mechanisms that produce energy from our food and environment that powers every process in our body. So we need energy for our body. We need energy to speak, to think, and every activity that we do in our day to day, we use energy for that, right? And then our metabolic health describes how well our metabolism functions, right? And what we use for energy primarily is glucose. Yes, we use fat. We can use fat for energy, and we do use fat for energy, and we're able to use protein for energy as well. But our body's primary molecule that we use that it uses for energy is glucose, right? And then just like if you go for your annual physical, right, just things that the doctors are looking for to see how healthy you are metabolically, right? Like your blood sugar, fasting levels, right? Triglycerides, your high density lipoproteins. That's just your cholesterol is low density, high density. And a way to remember it is like I learned that from nursing school. It's like your happy cholesterol, right? You want your happy cholesterol to be higher. But what we see is most people have this happy cholesterol on the lower side, and then like your lousy cholesterol, like your LDL cholesterol is higher. Your blood pressure, technically it says it should be less than 130 over 85, but at 130 over 85 you're considered pre-hypertensive already, right? So the goal is 120 over 80 or less. And then waist circumference, which a lot of times if you go and see a doctor, they'll do that, right? Because people with higher waist circumference, you have more fatty tissue deposits around your midsection, and that increases your insulin resistance, and it just makes you more prone to diabetes and high blood pressure and heart attacks and all these diseases that we don't want. So just a few reasons why we want to improve metabolic health. You feel you have more energy throughout the day. I mean, just think of a time where you decided to clean out your diet, right? And eliminate a few things here and there. You have better energy, you think better, your brain is clearer, right? And improve fertility for us women especially, and just like you're able to fight disease better, your immune system functions better, you reduce all this risk of chronic diseases, and then you have better exercise endurance. Sugar, I think more and more, I think a lot of times we think of, we used to think that fat was the culprit, right? When someone had a heart attack or someone had a stroke, or just a lot of we always just attributed it to they're having a high fat diet, right? Which was why the low fat craze came around, right? Everything had to be low fat milk, all of that stuff that doesn't taste good anyways. But then the thing is, when you switch and you're gonna do a low fat diet, a food that's not in its natural form low fat, when you take out the fat from it, you have to add something in it for it to taste good. And usually what gets added into it is sugar, right? Because if you look at low fat mayo has sugar in it, because low fat mayo does not taste good at all. Or just anything. I mean, next time you go to the grocery store, just pay attention. Stuff that's low fat or fat free, right? If you look at the labels, a lot of the time it has added sugar in it because it has to taste good for us to be able to eat it. And then just tying back to the last slide, symptoms of poor metabolic health, fatigue. I mean, you eat all this junk food, right? You're tired because you eat all this food, your body releases all this insulin, and then as soon as it has to release a lot of insulin to be able to process all of that food. And then what happens is you have this, you just crash because the insulin goes in your body, brings down your blood sugar, but then it takes it down too low. So it's like all day you eat a meal, your blood sugar goes up, insulin releases even much to bring it down, and then you crash. And then you have that cycle all day. So you're just in a constant state of fatigue. it makes it harder for you to lose weight. Insulin resistance makes it harder for you to lose weight. I mean, anybody can like if you people with higher midsections, it's harder to get rid of that, and that is because that's insulin resistance, right? And all insulin resistance just means is you've given your body so much sugar that your body in response has produced so much insulin that your cells are no longer responding to it at all. So you have high blood sugar, but you also have high insulin in your body. And that's something that a lot of doctors hear. It's not practice to check like your fasting insulin levels, because if you're checking fasting insulin and your fasting insulin is elevated, it means that that's a first clue for you to like, hey, something is happening, my body's not responding as it should. What changes can I make to get my cells to start responding to insulin? And you can go from insulin resistance to insulin sensitive just by taking some very, very simple steps. So again, just stuff like brain fog, just that, which ties in with the fatigue, mood changes, and acne. More and more research is showing like people who eat a lot of sugar and eventually get to that insulin resistance point, you're like this, your body, there's a lot of inflammation in your body, and from this inflammation, your body starts to produce a lot more sebum, and that's what causes acne, right? Like when you have acne and you have all the white stuff in it. So just a few symptoms of poor, and then you can see a lot of people, they have skin tags, a lot of people with skin issues. A lot of times there are other causes for that, but a lot of the times it's also in relation to just poor metabolic health. So the focus is on this is glucose, right? And I think of glucose as any carb, right? There's good carbs, there's bad carbs, right? But ultimately, sugar is sugar, right? And I think that's something that we need to learn as well. Sugar is sugar. It doesn't matter if it's organic sugar. It doesn't matter if it's white sugar, maple syrup. If it's sugar from an apple, it's sugar. The only difference is when you eat the whole apple, you get fiber, you get minerals, you get vitamins, right? Versus just eating a teaspoon of plain white sugar. Ultimately, it's all sugar. It's all sugar. So when you eat a carb, right, be it rice, pasta, potatoes, bread, whatever, right, that sugar, it enters your bloodstream and it signals your pancreas to release insulin, because insulin is a hormone that's going to help us helps our body to process this glucose, right? So then when it breaks it down, then that's energy, right? And sometimes we have excess of it, right? If we eat like a heavy meal, we have excess of it, and that excess of it gets stored in our muscle, it gets stored in the liver, and it can also be stored as triglycerides, right? Converted to triglycerides and stored as fat. So then, which explains the connection between why you can eat a low-fat diet, right? But you eat a lot of sugar and your triglycerides are elevated. Because you sometimes can say, oh, but I eat really low fat. Why is that number high, right? Because all the excess sugar that you're eating, your body has used up what it needs to use. And then the excess of it is getting converted to triglycerides, which are fatty cells, and is storing it as fat. So then when you go to your doctor for an annual check and they're like, this is your triglyceride level. So that, that explains that. So we eat a lot of sugar and our bodies are working overtime to process it. So like Kara explained earlier, so there's this repeated increase of insulin, and then eventually we get to that stage of insulin resistance, and because our bodies can use fat for energy, right? If we eat just enough sugar, right? Whenever your body is done using that sugar that you've eaten in that moment for energy, then your body can start to tap into your fat stores and use that for energy, which is what we want, right? We want, because you can't say you're not ever going to eat sugar, right? That's not, because sugar, I mean, even vegetables have carbs, right? Ultimately, it's all sugar. So you can't not eat any form of carbohydrates, but then you want to achieve that balance in such a way that your body is able to use excess fat stores as energy. And if you get to that point, then especially if you're in a space where you're trying to lose weight, then it becomes it becomes easy because the fat that you have in your body already, you're just using that for energy. And then just a way that we measure, like we measure if how healthy, like just one way that we can see how healthy we are as well is if our bodies are functioning properly, right? Say you before you eat a meal, your blood sugar in a hypothetical situation is 70, right? And after that meal, right, if your blood sugar goes to 170, that was not a good meal for you, right? Because 72, that variability is too high. Because then when your body releases all of that insulin to bring down that 170 back to your fasting level of 70, you're gonna crash. Like you're gonna feel fatigue, right? Like you're after Thanksgiving meals where you just sit there and you can't move, you can't do anything at all. So how much sugar, right? Men no more than 9 teaspoons a day, and women no more than 6 teaspoons a day. The average American eats 22 teaspoons of sugar per day, and I'm being moderate. Like that's a very conservative number. 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. A can of Coke, like a can of soda, has like 50 grams of sugar, right? There are people who drink 4 of those a day. Diet Coke is not good for you either because it produces those same insulin responses because your body, it's sweet, right? It might not give you calories, it might be 0 calories, but your body is sensing something sweet. So it releases insulin. So even though you didn't get any calories from that diet soda, diet whatever, but your body has still sensed that you had something sweet, and it's just chemicals anyway. Like it's just chemicals, which we should not be putting in our body anyway. So I tell people, if you're trying to cut sugar out, don't go to like Splenda and aspartame and all of that, right? Just slowly start to eat real sugar, right? But just slowly start to reduce the amount that you eat, right? If you're going to cut out coffee, if you're going to cut out juices, but don't go to like fake sugar because that just like that's another havoc that you're putting on your body altogether. And then it's just reducing the amount of sugar that we put in our diets. How do we go about this, right? Like guys, sugar has literally, there's like 56 different names of sugar, right? I mean, and a lot of times I tell people it's just that knowledge, right? You have to read your food labels. There's no way to go about that, right? You have to read. It could be high fructose corn syrup, like coconut sugar, all 56 different ways, right? So it's just not sugar. Like every label when you go to a grocery store, every label that you pick up to look at, I mean, it's just not sugar that you're going to see. It could be glucose, it could be fructose, it could be, so all these different names, right? It's that knowledge. And then going back, like reading your food labels, knowing what is in your food. If you pick up a food label, say, and it says the first ingredient is maybe, say for like crackers, the first ingredient is wheat flour, and the next one is sugar, then you know like that thing that you're about to eat has a lot of sugar in it, right? Because the way that food labels are written, it starts from the highest content, right? So if sugar is the first ingredient in something that you're buying, then that thing is primarily sugar, because it's telling you is that that's the highest that's what's telling you that sugar is the highest content in that food. And then this third point is really important. It's just taking an overall look at your diet to find out where sugar sneaks in for you. And for everybody, it's different, right? Breakfast cereals, right? I personally don't buy cereal for my kids that has more than 5 grams of sugar. They may not like it the first day I buy it. Eventually, they'll eat it. I don't buy. I mean, when I go to the grocery, I sometimes I'm in the grocery store like for 2 hours to buy like a plastic bag just because I have to make sure. I try my best, and it's not always possible. I try my best to make sure that the things that I'm feeding my family, right, it does not contain a lot of sugar. For some people, it's a donut for breakfast every morning, right? For some people, It's even oatmeal, right? Because you think oatmeal is healthy, right? But ultimately it's a carbohydrate, right? So if you just eat, especially if you eat like pre-packaged oatmeals, like I know that have a lot of flavor, like apple, cinnamon, it's all like for it to taste good, it's just all sugar, right? So it's not to say not to eat these things, but again, how you eat it matters. Because say you cook a bowl of oatmeal and you put some protein in it, and you put a little bit of sugar, you can put a little bit of honey, a little bit of something, right? But that protein that you put in it, or maybe you make that and you eat it with fat, it it slows the way that your body is going to absorb that oatmeal. So then the person who ate like a prepackaged pack of oatmeal, you're going to see this high spike in your blood sugar versus a person who cooked plain oatmeal at home and ate it with like peanut butter or like an egg or so you added protein, you added fat to it, so you're just not eating carbohydrates in isolation. Because I think that's another issue, right? We eat a lot of carbohydrates in isolation, so then the effects of those carbohydrates are really on our in our bodies, are the effects are heightened. For some people, it's just you eat a lot of rice, and there's nothing wrong with that in itself, right? But then again, it comes down to how you eat this rice, right? Did you just eat plain white rice, right? Or did you pair it with like protein and a healthy fat, right? Because if you do that, then the way that your body processes it is different. It's different. And sugary drinks like your orange juices, and I tell people I don't care if sugar, again, it just goes back to sugar is sugar, right? If it's organic apple juice, it's still just all sugar. It's just, they didn't spray pesticides on the apples that they use. That's it, right? Your body isn't processing it any different than the person drinking just regular apple juice from the store, right? So not to get so caught up in like, okay, I'm gonna make a switch in my diet, and I mean, we should eat organic and all of that, right? But then it comes down to all those other details. And then ultimately just eat whole foods, right? Eat whole foods, cook at home. Because the more you eat out, the more you're gonna eat more sugar, um the more you don't even know the source of what you're eating, right? Because then it's like, what is it just sugar, or are they making it with high fructose corn syrup, or is it artificial sweeteners that they put in it? So just a few ways that we can reduce the amount of sugar in our diet. Um, there's it's called, let me go back to it's called a continuous glucose monitor, and I've used it for like a month or two. So what it does is like a lot of diabetics use it, like type 1 diabetics use it, but anyone can use it, I know in the US you need a prescription for it, but like in Europe, a lot of countries, you can just go buy it, like how you can go buy Tylenol from over the counter. And I did it for like a month, I think. Yeah, I did it for a month. And you just put it on your arm, and it tells you throughout the day how your sugar control is, right? The days where I slept better, it was better. The days where I didn't sleep at all, or the days where, I mean, an apple, my blood sugar will be 80, and I'll eat an apple and it will be like 150, right? It's an apple. It's healthy. It's in every sense, it's healthy, right? But then again, it still has a lot of sugar. Like, it's just fructose. It's pure sugar, right? So it's just like taking teaspoons of sugar and just dumping it in, or depending on, at night, we're more insulin resistant at night. So at what times of the day are you eating your most heavy meals, right? Because the nights where I ate late, right, my sugar will stay high up until like 5 in the morning, and then it will slowly start to get down. And then another thing just to be mindful of is snacking. You don't need a snack, like, period. Because if you eat a healthy breakfast, you eat a healthy lunch, and you eat a healthy dinner. Because you have to think about it this way: when you eat a meal, your body has to release insulin to process this meal, right? Sometimes it takes 2 hours, right? If your body is healthy, right, it takes a shorter amount of time. But if you're not healthy to begin with, it takes even longer, right? And then before your body finishes before this 2 hour period is over, or 3 hours, depending on who you are, you eat a snack. They're not done with the first, your body's not done with the first meal. Then you go have a snack. Say, for example, this snack is, I don't know, let's keep it healthy. I don't know, like apple and peanut butter, or so you go eat this snack, right? Your body senses, okay, you've eaten something else, right? It releases insulin again before it was even done processing the other meal to work on the snack that you just ate and try to bring it down, right? Then it's lunchtime. Your body is not done with the snack that you ate, right? And then you eat Chick-fil-A for lunch, right? And so your body's so you're constantly, so your body's never just in a rested state where you're not producing insulin to try to bring down your sugar levels, to try to bring down your sugar levels. So it's just a few tips, right? You don't need to snack at all. You don't need to, I mean, if you're gonna snack, right, try and keep it, right? Don't snack within like 3 hours from the last time you just ate a meal. Avoid refined foods, avoid fat-free foods. Fat-free foods are not, because for it to taste good, they have to add something, and the thing that usually goes back into it is sugar. And I strongly believe that sugar, I mean, especially now that I work in pediatrics, right? Kids, they're kids with type 2 diabetes, they're kids with high cholesterol. I mean, you see these kids come in with like back in the days, those were diseases that 90-year-olds had, right? And it was like, and at 90, if you got diabetes, it was like, okay, you're 90 anyways, right? But these are like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, right? Because then you just think of the long life that they have ahead of them, because ultimately there's a lack of education, right? Because then you're educating the parents, but then this 5-year-olds, they grow into teenagers and they have friends who want to go to drive-throughs, and but they don't have that flexibility to do that because they already have this disease that limits them in the things that they can do. So then a lot of times they don't even like, a lot of kids struggle with this because then it plays into their identity, into their self-esteem, and then also then you start looking, like, as they get older, they have kidney diseases. And so it's just, I mean, I think also, like, for some of us who have young kids, start young, right? Like I said, like, if I give my kids something without sugar, they don't want to eat it, that's their problem, that's what's available. Eventually they will, and it's just training, right? Because even as adults, if you say, okay, today I'm gonna cut back on sugar, eventually your taste buds will adjust. Eventually you eat an apple and it's so sweet because you're not adding all this other extra things. Like, an apple is so sweet, a strawberry is so like your taste buds are heightened, so you're actually tasting food like you're supposed to taste it. And that ends my spiel. Thank you guys for listening.